Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our council chambers and our council meeting dated today, October the 9th, and a beautiful October 9th, I must say, in the beautiful city of Belleville. I'll call the meeting to order and attendance, and see that we're all here, and nice to see that we're all healthy and we're all here. Item number 2, moment of reflection. I'll refer to the clerk, please.
May we be worthy custodians of all that has been entrusted to us. Help us to be concerned for what will promote good government. May we bring to our council chamber minds that think and hearts that feel, always having respect for others so that we may serve the people of our city in a helpful manner and for the good of all.
Thank you. Amen. You can be seated. Okay, item number 3 on our agenda. I'm just getting caught up, I apologize. Item number 3 on the agenda, disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. Okay, Councillor Miller.
Thanks, Your Worship. I don't have a pecuniary interest in this. I just bring it forward as a matter of identification, and it's bylaw 2018-161, which is to authorize a collaboration agreement between the Children's Foundation, Corporation of the City of Belleville, and Quinte Area Challenger Baseball Field of Ability. I am a member of that committee on the fundraising side, so I just bring it to the attention of council, but I'm not declaring a conflict.
Okay, well noted. I'm going around the queue. Councillor Panchak.
Thank you. 8B13 is the appointment of municipal bylaw officers. I am a tenant of the Quinte Mall. I own a business there, and the resolution is to appoint bylaw officers for that facility.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, so I will take, there's an in-camera report there, ENG 2018-27, regarding personnel matters about identifiable individuals. So I will be taking a conflict there because I guess we're going back in-camera. Also to the clerk, I'll be declaring on 8A1, it's a report about parking restrictions. I have an immediate family member that lives on Queen Street. And also on consent items 8B1, which is 55 Church Street, and 8B2, there are planning issues, 59 Church Street. I also have a family member that lives immediately in that area, and the following bylaws that follow through. I'll hopefully pull them in time. Okay, everybody good with that? Okay, item number 4, public meeting, and we haven't got one scheduled today. So item number 5, reading and confirmation of the minutes. Minutes of the regular council meeting dated the 24th of September 2018 and the regular in-camera session the 10th of September 2018. Moved by Councillor Denier, second by Councillor Thompson. All in favor? All opposed? That's carried. Okay, we've got a couple, 3 deputations and one very nice presentation. We have our partners from the Viridian Connection group with us here today. They are going to be making a check presentation to the Corporation City of Belleville. And as they walk in, I'm thinking in the audience, we have President CEO Michael Angemir, and we have Melanie Walls in the audience. Good afternoon and welcome to Belleville.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here. Thanks very much. Pleasure to be here. So we're very pleased to be here today. Viridian is presenting the City of Belleville with a check for their street lighting retrofit they undertook in 2017. The city replaced more than 3,600 high-pressure sodium fixtures with energy-efficient LEDs. The retrofit will result in annual energy savings of more than 2.5 gigawatt hours, an amount equivalent to powering over 3,000 households for 1 month. So I'd like to recognize the efforts of Viridian's key account representative, Melanie Walls, who's with me here, in supporting the city's commitment to energy efficiency and sustainability. But without the hard work of Rob McGlashan and Joel Carl Brandt and the support from council, these incentives would have been lost and energy savings not captured. Not only will the city benefit from reduced electricity costs, but the new LED streetlights will help to improve visibility and safety and reduce maintenance costs. I have learned Viridian is also assisting the city with additional energy conservation projects at the Quinte Sports and Wellness Centre and Yardman Arena. Since 2012, Viridian has proudly assisted the city in obtaining over $435,000 in provincial incentives that help the city save nearly 3 gigawatts in annual electricity savings. I also want to recognize the City of Belleville as one of the top 2017 conservation champions. For the past 7 years, Viridian has recognized its top business customers for achieving outstanding electricity conservation results. This is a great recognition. Viridian has over 10,000 business customers, and only a very small number receive this recognition. I applaud the City of Belleville staff and council for their environment-first thinking and their leadership in sustainability and reducing their environmental footprint through numerous actions. So on behalf of Viridian's Board of Directors, management and staff, it gives me great pleasure to present the City of Belleville with a check in the amount of $436,497.53.
All right.
For the completion of your LED street lighting retrofit. We look forward to continuing to work closely with the city on future energy saving initiatives. And thank you for your time today, and congratulations. And we have Melanie, and as well we have Doug Parker and Jack Alexander from our Board of Directors to join us in this check presentation, and also Rob and Joel from the city.
Excellent. Hello, how are you? Hi, Melanie, how are you? Where's the camera? You want to stand over there? I took up too much. How do you want to do this? That's good. Yeah. Good stuff. That's good. We're good. I want to cash the check.
You don't
Oh,
get
it's
to
Jack Alexander. Jack, okay. And your name is Melanie?
Melanie.
W-A-L.
Yep.
Okay. And Mike, your last name?
You done? Okay, so I just want to take an opportunity here to thank Viridian and thank council for doing the initiative, as the President and CEO, Michael Angimer, commented. And just a little footnote, I had the privilege of representing the Corporation City of Belleville and also Viridian down in Atlantic, Canada, and I was on a panel talking about innovation in smart cities. So congratulations to all of council and staff, Rob and Joel also. We lead the country in this investment that we've made on LED lightings. For a city our size of 50,000 investing in LED lighting, and the return on our investment, it's going to be between 50 to 60% savings over the next 10 years. So those are huge numbers. So I want to thank council very much for supporting that initiative, and also the partnership we have with Viridian. It's a good news story, and we should all really embrace it. Thank you very much. Appreciate the rebate too. Okay, good news story. So can I just get a resolution to receive that check presentation from Viridian? Moved by Councillor Denier, second by Councillor Miller. Any questions? All in favor? All opposed? That's carried. Great story. Thank you very much. Nice to get one of those every meeting. So 6.2, we have the CEO, Joe Raycroft from the Belleville Chamber of Commerce, will walk us through some exciting news.
Yes, we do have exciting news. So
Can you just hit the little button? Sorry, Jill, I apologize. Thank you.
Yes, sorry. So we are here actually requesting a waiver of fees, the use of city services, and the approval of a parade permit for November 18th for the Santa Claus Parade, the 20th, in fact, of our nighttime parade. So this is a consent agenda item, but I believe there are significant questions from the public about the proposed route for 2018. And as councillors, you are going to be expected to represent the community's best interests in your decision to approve the permit. So our proposed route for 2018 is based on concerns for safety that became increasingly difficult to manage with a large parade, smaller roadways, and an unsafe area for disembarking. A couple weeks ago, about a month ago, we were informed by Quinte Secondary School, or Hastings Prince Edward Board, that we weren't going to be able to use Quinte Secondary School. So on that note, we started looking at another route, which was proposed back in 2016, which was the Bridge Street route. Knowing the resistance to changing the route from the downtown core, we then approached the BDIA and we explained to them a series of reasons why the Bridge Street was the best solution without Quinte Secondary School. We also iterated that there were some continued concerns with Quinte Secondary as a disembarking space, and some of the things that we've tried to mitigate that over the past few years. What has happened is the Quinte Secondary School has now been made available to us. That came after the permit was presented. I think I'm going to continue to present because the permit was put forward as the Bridge Street route. I'm going to put that forward, not necessarily because I think you have to make a decision on that. I mean, we could all breathe a sigh of relief that we don't have to make a change this year, but I think it's really important that you understand what the safety concerns are around that route, the challenges we've had in finding an alternate one, and why we've been very adamant through our conversation with the BDIA and anybody else that we want to bring this back to the table next spring and start looking at the parade all over again. In a situation where communities are canceling parades because they don't have enough volunteers or because of safety reasons, we are blessed to have a parade that has over 76 entries with over 1,500 people participating, and we have an active community that's involved in this. So we want to preserve that. Someone asked me if I hated Santa. That's not true. So ultimately, we are the messenger here. It's up to you to make a decision. So we talk a little bit about why have a parade. It connects the community. There used to be a way for a leader to demonstrate their power and have the townspeople gather around to a location. 1924, that's when Macy's first did theirs, and it was a way of using it for advertising. 20 years ago, we switched our parade to a nighttime Sunday evening parade. So all of those things that came into play about supporting business and trying to engage shoppers in a downtown area, all of those things have changed over time. And now I would say 20 years later, it's mostly about the kids. So we are celebrating the 20th anniversary. We have 76 plus entries, including politicians, city services, community organizations, marching bands, large and small businesses. Quinte Mall lends us Santa and hosts a contest for 4 families. And I don't know if you can see in that picture, but the people featured in that space are the 4 families that were actually selected by contest to ride in that float. I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the businesses that get involved, and I have a fairly long list, so I might just mention. So we have Bell, we have Lowe's Canada, we have the Pentecostals of Quinte, we have the Quinte Rowing Club, we have Holy Rosary Catholic School, we have the Belleville Senators, we have the Quinte Alliance Church, we have Belleville Dodge Chrysler, we have Pegasus Cheer Athletics, we have St. Michael's School, we have Potter Settlement Artisan Winery, we have a number of other, we have Habitat for Humanity, we have Bardon Supplies and Bathworks, we have Kellogg's, we have Procter & Gamble, we have Convergys. These are all community organizations and businesses that participate in this parade and make it happen. You see a couple of pictures of the floats. So when I say it's all about the kids, Unfortunately, what I'd like to say is it's really all about safety, and that's really what I'm here to talk about. But when we start looking about what the value is of this parade, we talk about it being the kids. And in all fairness to the downtown, this is not really against them at all. We have tried to reach out, have spoken with a couple of people who have expressed their disappointment to me personally, and I've said, let us sit down and talk about it. For those who won't reach out, I've reached out to them and tried to encourage a conversation. The whole point about that letter to the BDIA was say, let's move forward right away with talking about positive ways to make the energy and the ambiance and the downtown sparkle through this day. And how can we do that? If we spend our time debating where it should go as opposed to how we make it work, we've all wasted time. It's only for this year. That's all we're asking for. Anyway, so we go back to it being about the kids, and we've heard the instant reaction to the change. It goes against tradition. We have the same conversation in my living room or in the car. But we also wonder how it appeals to kids, and I just know that when I bring 2 kids down to a downtown area, that I'm looking for a warm place to stay. So where is there an opportunity? It was great when the Cozy was open because we'd sit in there and we'd have our hot chocolate. And we know that there are downtown merchants that support that, and we want to encourage that again. But once the parade begins, attention focuses elsewhere, and it's to the actual parade. So by bringing the parade through Bridge Street, it comes right down Bridge, it crosses the Front Street intersection and Pinnacle, and we have access to the armories and the Fair Trade Works lot where we can expand the whole public viewing area in that space. We're prepared to help bridge the audience from parents of small children to how do we engage the community. I think you've seen that the Chamber is capable of bringing people into our downtown with our Flavors of Fall event and with our Art Fest. We've partnered with so many organizations to make those things a success. We're prepared to do that, and we've offered our services to assist the BDIA in any way they want to. So basically our route selection criteria comes down to safety, public access, and emergency routes. And that brings us to assembly and zones. So the Front Street route gives us the fairgrounds. A few years ago we switched over to that. And I don't know if anyone has been there to see the assembly of the parade. But what the fairground and the route with the track allows us to do is line up every single float in the order in which they have to leave. So they have a marked space on that fairground route, and they move into their spot, and then they move out. When they disembark at Quinte Secondary School, 2 years ago, they had to try and make that turn on an extremely icy night. Last year we had good weather, but the challenge was we have large floats now with transports, and they couldn't make the curve safely. There is no lighting, so we pay over $2,500 to have that space lit up. The entry and exit out of that space for cars and people who are picking up their children becomes extremely unsafe. The lot is now no longer going to be maintained. So even though they've said that they're going to manage that, we've still always had to maintain it as well. We've had to manage these unsafe conditions on a Sunday afternoon. So even though it does work, it doesn't work well. One of the things we did to mitigate that last year was we had our transports pull up along North Front. So we closed the street from College Street all the way down. The transports pull up to the side of the road, and then parents somehow have to get over to the Quinte Secondary School lot, find their kids, or have them walk across the road in order to disembark. For one float alone, this could be 40 to 50 kids that now have to walk in the dark, cold, trying to find their parents and make sure they get to their safe space. So this is one of the things we're trying to mitigate with the Bayview Plaza and zone. What the Bridge Street route allows us is the Bayview Mall. They've agreed to, the floats will enter from Bridge Street, so they come right off Bridge into the huge west end side of that parking lot. Parents are able to park in the east. They can stand in the mall, it'll be open, and then they can watch for their kids, and the kids can enter right into one space, find their parents there in a safe way. The building is open for warming and restroom facilities. The one thing we heard last week from one of our parade, a significant partner in the parade, was that they have to rent a 24-foot cube van every year because the characters on their float can't be transported to and from the parade location, and they can't get uncostumed in front of kids. So you have that situation. These are things that we know you don't know, And we know that we haven't shared maybe freely before because we've just dealt with it. But I think it's important that you understand these are some of the challenges, so we don't come about this decision to change the route lightly or with the intention of trying to pull it from downtown. That's not the issue at all. Safety with navigation, and this continually comes up from the police report. The narrow turns are a challenge, but we have the one gradual downhill, a narrow turn radius. You know this. And then with Bridge Street, it's one gradual downhill, one gradual uphill, and no significant turns. We were told 2 weeks before the parade started last year that they weren't sure that the transports were going to be able to turn onto Bridge Street. Fortunately, there were no issues, but misgauge that or misdirect that, and what could happen? So public access. The other thing, when we went to the BDIA, we said, is there any silver lining in moving this parade? Because we understand tradition. If this were about tradition, and if we could hold on to that, we would in a heartbeat. What we understand, though, is they restrict parking through the Riverside lot and on Front Street. And ultimately what happens is people either get stuck there or they can't park down there. So you end up reducing your actual foot traffic on Front Street because nobody can park in the area. What we would say, silver lining-wise, is if we have that parking open and emphasize that it's free, have some activities happening in the downtown core through the afternoon leading up to the parade at 4:30, passing at Bridge Street, you've got people walking up and down Front Street all day long or all afternoon long. And then when the parade is over, they walk back through, the stores are lit up, they get to see the window displays, they get to see the beautifully lit trees. We get that downtown is beautiful at Christmas. What the Bridge Street does, it allows access to parking all day. It travels through 2 residential neighborhoods. Roads are open to westward traffic once the parade is passed, and there are multiple side streets for temporary parking. The note from the police chief, Ron Janak, last week, because once we heard that Quinte Secondary had pulled back their restrictions on our use, we said, okay, we got to make sure that our notice from everybody else is the same. So we checked in with police, fire, and emergency services, and they said and agreed, Front Street is not the best route for the Christmas parade. Our recommendations have been safety-based for over the past 3 years, and we have repeated this consistently on that Front Street route. It is not the best route due to the compressed turn, narrow corridor, and the Quinte Secondary completion area having very congested and restricted exit and entry points in the dark. We have volunteers, auxiliary, regular officers, overtime officers, senior officers, and civilian staff deployed for this parade on Front Street due to the complexity of the route and intersection turns. The proposed route for this year on Bridge Street is a 3-kilometer straight and wider route with more room on the sidewalks and verges on the roadway for citizens and spectators. It is safer, better to control, and much easier to ingress and egress when we have to intervene or extract people for either injuries, assaults, ambulance calls, medical evacuations, motor vehicle collisions, pedestrian struck, etc. Parking accessibility is excellent on the side streets, meeting Bridge, and safer when the massive rush of people, the young and elderly, are attempting to find parking than walking to and from Front Street. I can go on, but I want to just make sure that you understand that this is their concern, that the fairgrounds is a great starting place. Bayview Mall, as the parade end route, we have the room required, the lighting required, and a safe end point for the activities occurring surrounding the parade completion. That's the most vulnerable point in time, people getting on and off of floats, vehicles picking up bands and people up following a cold and attention-focused parade. The lighting must be good, the area should be flat and paved and have lots of room. The Bayview Mall provides an excellent parade completion area. The key features for the Bridge Street route, I've mentioned it before, the excellent assembly and end zones. It's a straight route less than 4 kilometers, multiple points of access from side streets, community spaces available at Bridge Street and Front Street intersection, the Fair Trade Works lot, the Armories, Rob and Jeffrey Park, Glenmore, all of whom are excited. There's also front door viewing for many residents, and so we have reached out to Bridge Street residents and asked them, how do you feel about this? So obviously it's not formal approach. It's kind of the people we know and saying, okay, will you call your neighbors? And the feedback I've received right now is that there is no resistance. In fact, they think it might be fun. Be great to see, and people are talking about how they can invite their friends and family over and watch the parade, perhaps even those who don't usually do so. We can understand this is something that down folks like to do too, but infinitely more people will be able to watch the parade from an inside cozy perch on Bridge Street. So, from a supporting downtown perspective, again, I know this is really feeling like a decision against downtown to go with Bridge Street, but I really want you to consider it as a support for safety. And because we are committed to supporting the downtown through this day, we're hoping that all-day parking might encourage rural residents to view the parade downtown. In a conversation with Catherine Brown, I said, you know, as a Thurlow resident, I always wonder where I'm going to go trick-or-treating. And if we make the downtown core a safe haven place for people from Thurlow to come down and watch it, this is your place to watch the parade, you've got an opportunity for all those Thurlow people to kind of consider visiting their downtown. Bridge Street residents will be able to watch it, and other people along that route will be able to find places to watch as well. People will walk up and down Front Street from parking to parade viewing and back. Open stores might encourage business in the afternoon. I understand that not a lot of people make sales and they try to stay open for the sake of. Maybe we can do something around that. Window decorating contests, scavenger hunts, prizes, the tree lighting ceremony to kick off the parade start. The opportunities to create excitement are endless. I believe you all saw the report to the BDIA, so you saw the long list of things that we're trying to propose. Happy to help in any way we can. I want to point to this one picture and just show that the first picture is the view heading down to Bridge Street. So you can see that this is a really congested area where people are gathered to watch the parade. That's great. Just about a half a block up though, we start seeing the spaces and the gaps. So throughout that route, are we really pulling as many people to the downtown core as we'd like to? What is the advantage to being downtown when we have the significant safety concerns and the no parking ability when people are down there? So what can we do to make this better? And again, this isn't forever. This is for this year. I think we put it back on the table next year and we say, what do we have to look at? Do we have to look at a smaller parade? Do we eliminate transports? I'd hate to say that we do that for this year. We need to give our long-term partners who have been a big part of this for the last few years a chance to at least kick this off one last time. But I think we're going to put everything back on the table next year. I want to say thank you, and I think I was just going to reflect on what Matt said. These are minds that think, hearts that feel, and serve our community in a helpful manner. And I guess we appeal that you would add safety to your thoughts today. Any questions?
Thank you very much for the deputation. Councillor Boyce.
Thank you for coming, Jill. And you know we're going to disagree on this one. So, and you mentioned about Bridge Street East, and there doesn't seem to be any concerns, but yet I know all of council got an email from St. Thomas Church about the concert series and the issue where they're concerned that going up Bridge Street will essentially block their parking route off. And the number that's attend, several hundred people go to those concert series every year, and because of the sudden change of the location, they've got it set that they're going to have it that Sunday night, and now they're afraid that people aren't going to attend. So, St. Thomas is certainly a group that doesn't want it changed. So there is opponents on Bridge Street, and.
Can I just speak to our conversation with them? So their concert begins at 4:30. We see absolutely no reason why their parking can't be managed from 3:30 to 4:30 without impacting any of the parade route. So they can have access to their parking. The concert, I believe, is over at 5:30. So we've had a fairly ongoing conversation with them as well. So I think we can mitigate any of the concerns. They usually follow their concert with reception. And in fact, they actually would have viewing area from their annex. So they could, if they really needed to leave right after, they could park on Church Street. But if they were staying there, we believe the parade will probably be by their space by 6:15. So, and we would be able to allow people leaving their parking area by then.
Okay, because I was going to say that they did speak to you, and after speaking to you, they had the exact same concerns about being stuck in the, I'm not sure if you've received the email or not. I could certainly forward the email to you as well.
Sure. I think what we said is let's look at the timing when we know for sure.
Okay.
But that was our back and forth exchange with about 3 emails was once we identified their timing, we're quite sure that most people won't be inconvenienced terribly, and they will have enough time to let their audience know that that would happen on that night.
So my question then would be to you. You mentioned that originally, when you went to the BDIA, the issue was there wasn't the prime issue was that there wasn't the availability at Quinte.
That's the nail in the coffin.
Yeah. So I can understand some of the BDIA members would, would be a little hesitant, but they would think, well, if there's not the availability, now we know there's the availability in this. So my question to you is, why would we change it this year? And you say, oh, we'll change it this year and then we'll reconsider it next year. Why wouldn't we keep it the status quo going through the downtown this year and then have lengthy discussion rather than, I think we're, 6 weeks away from the parade right now, so it's kind of, it's coming to council at the last moment. And why wouldn't we then say, you know what, let's have lengthy discussion with the BDIA throughout the whole year? Because the members I'm talking to in the BDIA, they're just as vocal as I am in terms of let's keep it downtown. Like, I mean, and so I think that if you were to go back to the BDIA board and with the understanding that Quinte is now a possibility.
We completely absolved them of that decision.
Yeah.
Like, in all fairness, but our argument for needing the Bridge Street route hasn't really changed because the safety concerns with Front Street remain. And I think that's why we have to make sure that that conversation is on the table, that everybody understands that the safety considerations with Front Street don't change. Quinte Secondary School presents its challenges as well. It really was kind of that final, okay, we can't be there. And contrary to the school board, changing their mind about things, they did this time. So we found that really interesting that in the sake of safety, they're willing to change their mind, but not when it comes to a budget issue like changing a school name. Just saying.
Yeah, I'm just saying that we've had the same issues, and I just wonder if you would be coming to council asking for a change if Quinte Secondary School had not originally told us that they weren't going to do it. So.
No, and I agree with you. And I think the conversation has to begin, and that's why we're persisting with going through with the deputation. It's not because I understand that you're going to want to say, let's just keep it the way it is. What I would propose is that our change to next year is going to be significant, and if we don't try this one time, we won't know whether there's any value to a Bridge Street route.
Okay. Well, like
and you know what, like I say, we found out last week and everything's already in, so what do? You know what, we might as well fly and see what happens. It's not because we don't want to do it downtown, and we've done everything we can to try and engage in conversation, and that's why the BDIA was willing to support it without the QSS piece. And again, I would say we absolved them of that decision, because they made it based on that information.
Okay. Well, like I say, we'll respectfully agree to disagree on this.
Councillor Pancha?
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Raycroft, for coming today. It's always a pleasure to have you. And first of all, I'd like to say congratulations on probably the most successful Flavors of the Fall event a couple weeks ago. I want to thank you and all the staff. And as a past president of the Chamber of Commerce, I know how much work it takes. And so I want to say thank you to that. I'm a big fan of our partnership with the Chamber. You take on a number of events, including the Santa Claus Parade. You give us very good value for that work, and you do excellent work, you and Susan and everybody else. So I want to say that because I think it's important to recognize that. It's a valued partnership we have there. The City of Belleville and City of Belleville taxpayers have done a lot to showcase our downtown. And it's not appropriate for me to debate you on the decision. I want to ask some questions so that when it was referred to later on, we can have some informed discussion. Can I ask, I know we have a financial arrangement with the Chamber to put on this event along with the other ones. What other support do you get? For example, do you get support from downtown merchants and the Downtown Business Improvement Association for this parade through downtown?
No. And I would say that, now, I suppose we could apply to the BDIA for an event application, and maybe we would be able to get some money that way. Primarily, Hannon Systems was always the largest proponent, I guess. Quinte Mall supports it, and we have, and then it's the registration of the floats that participate. And we don't have anyone from the downtown doing that either.
So I guess if there isn't any financial support, do you have any other frustrations with the parade in that area? For example, hours of operations of the merchants while the parade is on?
No, you know what, in all fairness, I have to say that the audience for the parade is families and young children. There are very few stores in the downtown core that actually cater to that target market. So for them to force them to be open, or to, you know, to try and mandate that, I don't know that that's necessary. I don't know that we're actually, but this is where I'm suggesting if we could bridge the audience a little bit and create an opportunity to make something more happen downtown in that afternoon, then you're bringing the kids and the families down later on in the afternoon to watch the parade across the Bridge Street section. Again, I don't think that mandated hours are necessarily an assistance. I know that there are some stores who will remain open. I know that there are some who benefit in some way. I think it's mixed, and I don't know that it has to be mandated.
Okay.
And that's not a resistance at all.
Yeah. An observation from my part, I think that having open stores during the Santa Claus parade is a indication of an investment on the part of those merchants.
It might be supportive.
And I'll just suggest that because now that the Quinte Secondary School site is now available, City Council may make a decision to not accept your recommendation. And I guess if we are going to if we take that step, I would suggest to the Chamber that you may want to think about some changes in order to accommodate that decision this year. Changes in terms of monetary support, helping to sponsor that event, particularly for the extra work that is going to be going into it, and also that there be a some type of measurement that we can actually go and speak for next year, because if as you are predicting, next year there may be a more significant change because of other factors, it would be good for us to have some measurements that we can go back and look at, talk about, again, the amount of financial support for this event, as well as the inviting atmosphere downtown in terms of merchants being open. Thank you very much.
Sure. And I think I might say that what we were looking at this year was an opportunity to gauge what that difference might be. So we would have a downtown route that has been traditional, and we know kind of what to expect from that. This would be our Bridge Street year to see what would happen with that. And then we can throw all of that information onto the table. I think what we would do now is we'll probably end up trying to see what Bridge Street does next year, and then that delays the change for another year. So that's really the question. And with the safety issues in play.
Thank you. Any more questions from the floor? Thank you very much. I'll really appreciate good deputation. So we just need a motion or a resolution to refer this to consent items 8B12. Moved by Councillor Denier, second by Councillor Miller. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Thank you very much for the deputation. Very informative. 6.3, Mark Shepard, Zone 6B Director of the Ontario Furs Managers Federation, and Wilfred Deline, member of the OFMF, will make a deputation to Council. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon, Your Worship.
Great.
Good afternoon, Your Worship, Councillors. Thank you so much for giving us the time to do a short presentation for you today. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Willis Deline. It said Wilford, but that's my proper name. I go by Willis. I'm the president of the Ontario Fur Managers Federation, and my colleague is Mark Shepard. Like I said, he's the local director for the Ontario Fur Managers Federation for this area, and he represents roughly 450 licensed trappers in this area. Our organization is a provincial body that supports and works for trappers in the province of Ontario. We have roughly 6,000 members. We also have a business agreement with the Ministry of Natural Resources where we do the licensing for them, the data entry, harvest reporting, and we also run the education program for the province on their behalf. We did a PowerPoint presentation for you, and we just printed it out and we set it out on your desk there. So I'll just go through that quickly and try to get not take too much of your time this evening.
Go ahead.
The three issues we'd like to speak about is fur bearer management, protecting property and the safety of people. Number 2, methods or tools for managing fur bearer issues. And number 3, suggestions and solutions. We'll start into fur bearer management, protection of property and safety of people. Your next slide or page, it'll show just some, that's just some typical beaver damage that you have seen probably various places in the province, maybe on your own land. Your next page, wow, that's some major damage that occurred to Highway 17 in Wawa a while back. That was caused by a major beaver flood, a dam letting go. Next page is a train derailment from beaver damage.
Excuse me, can I ask you, were you comfortable to put that on the screen, or you don't want to do that?
I could have, but I didn't. I wasn't sure what I was supposed to do, so I just trimmed it. No, I didn't bring the computer or nothing.
So that's fine.
I'm sorry, very sorry for that.
Okay, thank you, sir.
The next picture is a train derailment from beaver damage. It was near Mattawa in 2009. And this, I have lots of pictures, and I got some of my own from the local municipality I work at of roads being washed out and lots of problems with their infrastructure due to beavers. And there's just a few there, but I could show you lots of them. I think we lost 3 roads ourselves last year. Managing fur bearers is quickly becoming a major issue in urban municipal jurisdictions. Authorities cannot, in most cases, ignore or choose to do nothing because of public safety. Ultimately, safety of the people must be the major consideration and end goal when wildlife issues arise. Humane treatment and respect for fur bearers and other wildlife species must be another serious consideration. Another concern facing municipalities and jurisdictions is choosing the best solution to resolve the situation and avoid reoccurrences. Cost is a major concern for municipalities and jurisdictions on how to best address an immediate issue to provide temporary or permanent solutions. And we all know taxpayers work hard for the money, and we definitely have to be fiscally responsible, and cost is a major issue. Permanent solutions should be considered. However, in some circumstances, there's no guarantee this situation will not occur in the future. Your next page is just a picture of a live trap and a beaver. That's definitely a solution or a recommendation you could try instead of other methods. You definitely, there is live traps out there, and we'll speak about methods or tools for managing beaver issues. The next page is just another variation of a different beaver live trap. Some of the pros to trying this method is it's Ontario regulated approved trap. It can be effective in limited situations. Fur bearers, when caught, can be removed, and it can be cost effective. But some of your cons will be it will not work in every situation, however, and it's not necessarily species specific. Fur bearers can only be relocated in 1 kilometer of a capture as per Ministry of Natural Resources regulation. So that there gives you a lot of problems sometime on relocating is the distance. Maybe you want to relocate this nuisance beaver and it has to be by law within 1 kilometer and there's no wetlands to release it maybe. Maybe the only wetland there is has another colony of beaver in it, and if you release, most water bodies only have 1 colony of beaver in it. They're very territorial, so if you release a beaver from another colony, they're going to, the main colony is going to put that beaver out. It's going to be fighting with it. It could die from being put out. Maybe it gets run over. Maybe it starves. Maybe when they get fighting, sometimes there's a infection thing. So you got to think about all these things when we're relocating animals. And it can be inhumane due to stress of captured fur bearers. Different fur bearers have different stress values. Some stress really hard in live traps, and some live trap really good, no stresses at all. So it just depends on the species and what method you might want to try. Some types pose potential safety issues for citizens, and they're very visible to the public. You open live traps like that. Another method you could try is submerged beaver shore set, like in that picture. The next slide is just showing a gentleman making that set. And it's just an illustrated version of what the gentleman's doing. And some of the pros to this style set is It's an agreement of the International Humane Trapper Standards approved trap. It's very effective for specific species. It's not easily visible to the public. Individuals attempting to purposely seek and tamper with this set would have greater difficulty. In most situations, it provides a permanent solution. It is very cost-effective, and in most situations does not pose a safety concern for people. The con of these particular types of sets, so that's your body gripping traps, is there's a small percentage of incidental captures, so you got to be aware of that. It is rare, but something you have to keep in mind. I'm not sure if you have ever tried these. This is culvert fencing. We actually have one where I live and work, and they have limited success at times. Something you could look into. Beaver bafflers or levelers. A lot of places have tried them and are still trying them. There's always new technologies and new designs coming out that you can try. Here's a few. A township. This is Beckwith Township. They had tried a beaver baffler they installed in the next spring. Unfortunately, it didn't work. It was plug solid, so that's unfortunate, but just some pictures of that. Here's another one Beckwith they tried, and beaver are an incredible animal. They're very smart, and the sound of running water triggers them to dam, and they can figure out how to dam anything in time. And this is just a picture of some crop damage that can happen. This is same township, a 12-inch beaver dam, and only one beaver caused all that flooding to the farmer and the crops, which is unfortunate. Some of the pros to fences and bafflers and levelers are they may reduce and control water levels, and it does not impose safety issues for citizens. Some of the cons to this is it doesn't not a permanent solution in most situations. Operating this device can require costly man and equipment hours, and it can be very costly to install depending on the application and the maintenance. When they plug them up, it's quite an ordeal to unplug these and clean them. They can only be used in certain applications, example beaver dams and culverts. They may control water levels but will not stop property damage due to the trees. So you have to think about your situation. You put one of these in, there's lots of beautiful ornamentals or something. The water may be maintained if it's working properly, but they eat wood. They're still going to go up there and cut them down. Maybe there's mature trees, and that's all surrounded by like hydro lines, houses. They can fall the trees on them and houses. So you got to think about all these situations and scenario when you're picking what method you want to use to try to control it. And then there's another potential for low water in the winter, thereby causing die-off of fur bearers, fish, and other wetland species due to starvation and lack of water and hypothermia. This is the first time you put it in, and if it works real good, it may maintain the water and keep it down good and low, which is what you want for safety of the roads, which is excellent. But you have to think about is the species that are left in there, freeze-up's coming, you might have too low of water, and you might get some freeze-off. So all just considerations we want just to think about. Some of our suggestions and solutions: do not eliminate or ban any of the methods or tools. Each individual problem, issue, or situation requires logical assessment by a trained, certified, and experienced professional to assist in determining the best methods to achieve the human-wildlife conflict goals identified. Do not ban restraining or body gripping traps. As for some species and situations, this may be the only effective method to solve the issue or the problem. Our focus in this presentation has been the beaver, as it was the species involved in the recent City of Belleville wildlife issue. Other fur bearers require the same or similar methods and tools to resolve similar types of issues. Remember, regardless of the selected method, safety barriers must be in place. Individuals may attempt to jeopardize efforts to protect and promote a safe environment for citizens, property, and/or infrastructure. Some individuals with personal agendas or opinions will never be satisfied with humane methods utilized by trained, certified, and ethical professionals in the resolution of humane wildlife conflicts. And we spoke of beaver a lot here, but we have other species to think of too. We have human wildlife conflicts with coyotes in our cities sometimes, skunks, foxes, squirrels, and right now, I'm not sure if you're aware, raccoon rabies is in Ontario, and it's actually still growing, unfortunately. It's up Hamilton, working its way to Toronto, but it is heading east. So it's something hopefully we don't get here, but something we have to be prepared. It could come here, and we got to be able to deal with it. And we definitely don't want to eliminate any tools that we may need to take care of the problems at hand. Just next slide, it's just some raccoon damage and a raccoon caught in a live trap. I just wanted to, I'm not sure if you're aware about humane trap standards, so a lot of people, they got this vision, it's just a terrible, inhumane thing, and I wanted to read you this little section. The OFMF would like to also remind the Council that all traps and live holding devices that are used for wildlife removal in Ontario must be certified and approved by the MNRF under their legislative authority. To qualify, these devices have had to be tested and meet the Agreement for International Humane Trapping Standards, which is an international agreement between Canada, Russia, and the European nation. Traps and trapping procedures in Ontario are the highest standards in the world. Trappers that have to use humane traps and that have been certified and meet the agreement on international humane trapping standards. We mention this not only to make you aware of the requirements, but to dismiss the myth that traps are used in Ontario cause needless pain and suffering. The Ontario Fur Managers Federation would like to point out that since 1983, Canada and the provinces jointly invested nearly $58 million in trap research, testing and development of humane methods. This testing and research has not only been carried out for more humane fur-bearer trapping methods, but also for humane nuisance wildlife control methods. Canada has been the leader in the global effort and is the only country that is in compliance with the European Union's agreement on international humane trapper standards. That was all I had for you, and I would ask for questions.
Thank you very much. Good
Your Worship.
presentation. You bet. So Councillor Panchak?
Thank you very much, Mr. Deline, for coming today. I think I caught earlier, just want to make sure that I was correct.
Yep.
The Federation, that is made up of, the members of the Federation are people who are actively engaged in trapping in Ontario. Would I be correct?
That is correct.
Right, and so is that the funding your organization gets, is from people who make their livelihoods by trapping animals?
Yeah, well, there's two fundings. There's funding from the Ministry of Natural Resources, and that's our business agreement,
Okay.
and they pay us to do the education, the provincial education program we administer, and they fund us for data entry and issuing of licenses. The membership portion of the trappers is almost like a business. Then the membership portion, that's funded by the trappers when they buy their trapping license. If like anglers and hunters or any organization, you pay your membership, and that's where the membership money comes from.
Right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any more questions from the floor? Councillor McCaw?
Thank you, and thank you for coming.
Thank you.
I just had a few questions. I wonder if you could answer. I guess the first question I have is, were you asked to come here today to speak to this council, or what does bring you here today?
No, what triggered, we knew nothing about this. Actually, I read in the paper last week. There was an article in the paper we read. And when I read it, I felt misconceptions about the industry, and I had great concerns that possibly there may be a ban on your body gripping and restraining traps. And we wanted to address, we had one opportunity to come and address any questions you may have and let you know there is alternative methods and we support them. But we'd encourage you not to ban them uses too, because there may be times you do need them as well. We're not saying don't use the other ones. And technology's changing, and there's probably a lot of good things being developed all the time. But please leave the third option open, because you never know what may arise, and the other two aren't working. You have to control the problem. Like, public safety is important.
Okay, another question? Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a few, if that's okay. Do you generally, I realize you're probably not from this municipality.
No.
Okay, have you ever trapped in this municipality?
Myself and this, no, I've never trapped in this city of Belleville.
Okay.
Myself.
So do you commonly trap in urban areas where households might be somewhere around 5,000 households?
Yes, it's very common. That's why a lot of people don't realize it even happens. Through the province of Ontario, many municipalities have nuisance breeder programs with either individual trappers, or a lot of them they'll use trapper councils, and they'll minister to the people, and just nuisance wildlife companies as well. And there's many doing it all the time. There's probably literally hundreds of nuisance animals being taken care of, and we don't hear about it because they're doing it professionally, safely, and everything's fine. Unfortunately, once in a while, and I'm not going to hide behind it, something bad happens, and that's what spurs conversation. But it's not a normal practice, and obviously it's been happening for years and years and years, and it's not brought to light that often because it's normally not an issue.
Another question?
So just, upon learning that you were coming, I took some time to go through the internet and I found a few articles. One was in the Central Frontenac News, where it states, and I think you're quoted in a few spots here, trappers deal with concerns over loss of dogs. So, I read here about a couple of instances about a dog accidentally caught and later died in a conibear trap near Peterborough in 2014. A similarly tragic incident occurred recently, much closer to home, when a local couple from McDonald's Corners who wished to remain anonymous had their dog killed in a conibear trap a couple of hundred meters from their home in January. Their dog, Toby, a Border Collie Australian Shepherd cross, was active and playful and their only pet. Goes on to say that the legally set trap that killed him was baited with a squirrel and placed on private property several feet off a rural side road, which also doubled as a snowmobile trail. Toby wandered off the trail while off leash, attracted to the meat in the trap and caught in the neck. So I go further on the article and I read a little bit about the conibear trap, how it's designed to lure an animal with bait and then clamped shut on the animal's neck, closing the trachea, restricting blood flow to the brain, and then sometimes looks like snapping the animal's spinal cord. The animal can lose consciousness after a few minutes and then ideally, the word ideally dies. That's the part that sticks with me, ideally. You know what? In a perfect world, sure. But ideally, really, to me, doesn't cut it. They go on to say that, unfortunately, in the case of Toby, the owners had to witness the slow death of their dog as the trap wasn't strong enough to kill him instantly. Those are a few cases that were published in this Frontenac article where you are quoted in it. You're also making a quote about citizens who are proactive, and you talk about the posting of signs. However, the concern is of posting of signs that encourages tampering by activist animal rights organizations or thieves. And then you go on and you say that there is a slight danger and that you get some of these airheads who have nothing better to do.
That wasn't me, ma'am.
It said Wilf DeLine. That's the article?
That's my father.
Okay.
Same name, that's why I go by Willis.
Okay,
I'm
so
sorry
I'm
for
just going to
interrupting.
go on and finish it. There's a slight danger that if you get some of these airheads who have nothing better to do, you've told them you've got traps somewhere, so they're going to mess with them, said Wilf DeLine. Now that's unfortunate. In our case here in Belleville, the trap that we're referring to was less than 20 feet from a sidewalk amongst several subdivisions. And when I read things like this, I could just see the reality of how quickly a child could have been trapped there. Also, how easily an animal could have been trapped there. So, I really take issue with some of the things that I'm reading, and I'm not maybe necessarily saying that all traps should be banned, but perhaps live traps would be more humane, because some of the descriptions actually in these articles, to me, aren't humane. That's all I have to say on that.
Thank you. Councillor Boyce, your question?
Want to respond?
And thank you, gentlemen, for coming.
Yep.
And I just have to ask about the one page where you talk about the Ministry of Natural Resources. You stipulate the 1 kilometer is a regulation. Is it a regulation or is it a recommendation?
As far as I know, a regulation.
Okay, so
A lot of it spread disease, I believe, is why they implemented
yeah,
that.
so it's not just a recommendation you're saying? My understanding when I looked at it was that it stated it's a recommendation. So I'm just wondering if...
My interpretation, it's a regulation, but I could stand to be corrected, and I will 100% find out the proper information and get it back to you.
And my other question is, when you look at that specific area, which is about 15 feet from the sidewalk, would you, as a trapper, I assume you're both trappers?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Would you put up signs indicating, because we have video, there are kids that play actually in this specific area where the trap was, so we're very fortunate that it didn't happen to a particular kid. But because kids are playing in this water, it's in a neighborhood, it's 15 feet, would you put up a sign? Or what would be your recommendation? A live trap in that specific area? And would there be a sign saying that this area has traps?
I would love to really know the situation, see it, to give you a proper judgment on my part, what I would use in that situation. I truly can't answer without seeing it. From the description you're giving to me, maybe there was an alternative method. Maybe that was the best one for that approach. Maybe there was land that we could have the trapper could have went up around the corner, maybe set it farther back. Signs, they're good and bad. My personal experience, but I'm about an hour north of here, I've had more, we've had good luck with them. People see them, they respect them. Okay, yep, we know this is a trapping area. A lot of areas in the province are scared to death because they've tried them, and then your animal welfare groups will see them, and obviously they're not for that, and they'll damage them, they'll destroy them, they'll steal them, they'll manipulate them, so it can have an adverse effect. In a perfect world, I'd love to say, yeah, put it up, people know, they can respect it, but honestly, it doesn't always work. It depends on the part of the province, the people that's around. There's no right or wrong answer to that. I wish there was.
I guess, and I'm not going to be argumentative, but I guess the right answer is to try to prevent people and kids and dogs from, that play in the area, and then all of a sudden there's a trap, and they get hit by the trap. And so, some type of notification. I mean, we put up notifications all the time when there's risks involved.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted your opinion on it. And have you ever live trapped beavers?
Myself? No.
Yeah.
No.
Have you trapped beavers?
Yes.
Okay, but you've never attempted to live trap?
No.
And the reason?
The reason, I'm in a more rural area where I've never had the situation I've had to go out and do that,
Yeah.
to be honest with you.
Yeah, and because you're in a rural area. But if you were in an urban area, would you consider live trapping?
In an urban area, I
Yeah.
consider all methods,
Yeah.
depending on the
Yeah.
situation.
But
There may be times where I would use your underwater set, because they are underwater.
Yeah.
Maybe if you can wait till the winter, under the ice, perfect time to get them, if you can. Sometimes you can't, though. Depends on each individual situation requires something different. It may be a body gripping, it possibly could be a live trapping, maybe a certain spot, a smaller tile, a baffler might work, and it's easy to clean. Like, there's so many different devices you can use.
Yeah.
And I can't say each individual situation what to use unless I'm
Yeah.
there, sir.
But I understand by your answer that you've never used live trapping because you're...
I've used lots of live traps for other fur bears,
Yeah.
but not particular beavers.
Okay.
Sorry, sir.
But because you're in a more of a rural area,
For the beaver trapping, I've done quite a bit of urban trapping, and for like raccoons, skunks a little bit, different terrestrial species,
So-
but beaver not so much.
So in the urban area, you've tended to use live trapping then?
I've used live trapping, and I've also used lethal. Yes, I've
Yep.
used both.
Okay.
And depend on the situation. Like, every situation is going to require a different approach, and you want to use the approach as the safest for our public and the works, and cost effective and works. We got to take care of the problem too and protect people. Like, the comment I hear a lot is the children, and they are the most. I'm a father. I'm of two. I love my children more than anything. I'm also a fourth generation trapper, and I'm proud of that. There's more fur bearers from proper management on our area than there has ever been from great granddad's time. I take a lot of pride in that. And these traps, anything could happen, but I don't ever see a potential threat to children or people, as when they are set, they are under the water. They're in swamps. They're in deeper areas. They should be anyways. And they should be in locations where it doesn't pose. If it does, obviously, yeah, we're going to have to use a different method or management practice.
So I think we can agree that the priority is the protection of the, not just children, but the protection of the, say, someone's pet and children, or an adult that may be in there grabbing a ball for a dog or something. And so I think we agree that the number one priority is the protection of people around in the area.
Public safety is number one, and that includes, though, infrastructure, roads being undermined. It's not just
Absolutely.
the physical person walking by getting hurt, it's the road being going to collapse and the school bus going into it, and all these things we got to think about as well. Like, there's a lot to think about. It's just not a black and white simple, we'll do this, it's going to solve it. Unfortunately, they're animals, they're smart, and there's a lot of different solutions to the problems. And we got to consider all of them and use all of them to manage the wildlife properly.
Thank you.
Councillor Thompson, you have a question?
Just a quick one. If we're trapping, is there any regulations that people within a certain area have to be notified that you're trapping for whatever reason, whatever type of method? Is there anything there in the regulations that people have to be notified that you're trapping?
No, there isn't.
Okay. Great presentation, very informative. No more questions? So I have to ask you one, because the one you don't ask the dumb one. The fur bears and the beavers, are they the same? Like, I'm not a hunter.
So fur bears is anything that's like beaver, muskrats, all your semi-aquatic and terrestrials. Beaver, muskrats, otter, fox, raccoon, skunks, mink. They're all classified as fur bear. Like your deer and your moose, they're ungulates, they're big game. So that's the difference.
Okay, no, appreciate that. Very informative, very informative. So I just need a resolution to receive the deputation from Wilfred Deline, member of the OFMF, providing insight into the leg hold and body gripping trap issue, offering suggestions for the future to be received. Moved by Councillor Denier, second by Councillor Carr. All in favour? That's carried. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Very informative. Muchly appreciated. Thank you. Okay, 6.4, we have Mr. John Cairns in the audience, city resident and businessman, to present a gift to the City of Belleville Council given to him on a recent trip to Nepal from the Minister of Tourism. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Probably one of my...
Can you hit that little red button? Sorry, thank you, sir.
Can you hear me okay now?
Yes, sir.
It's probably going to be one of my shortest deliveries that I've ever made, so you're welcome. Your Worship, city staff, council, media, and public gallery, and I do ask that you forgive my back. May I first, in an attitude of gratitude, applaud all of you for your ambitious visions, your passion, your commitment to our city, and yet most of all for the progress achieved, some painful, yet necessary, and for your accomplishments in advancing our city forward, shaping Belleville into a city that is increasingly vibrant, innovative, inclusive, and sustainable. And for that, I believe that's nothing short of exciting. So thank you. It may appear that I have my Halloween dates mixed up, but I assure you this is not the case. It gives me great pleasure to stand before everyone here today and in front of the community. As a proud member of this community and a citizen of our beautiful city of Belleville. In May past, as many of you are aware, I successfully summited Mount Everest Base Camp in Nepal as an inspirational advocacy piece and in support of my charity Wheelchair of Hope Foundation. Notwithstanding moments of what was I thinking and seemingly times of defeat, that with hard work and a can-do attitude, you can accomplish anything. Upon my return from Kathmandu, I was honored to have the opportunity to have an inspired article write-up in the Nepal Rising national paper. Subsequently, this ignited an opportunity to meet the Nepal Board of Tourism Director and Minister, to be informed that I was actually the first double amputee above the knee to have accomplished a successful summit to Everest Base Camp. Friends, I want to say that this success is actually our success. For I felt the weight of the love of community and support and encouragement from the community, inspiring me to keep going and not to give up and put one step in front of the other, pun intended, and not to give up. And so in keeping with that foreign goodwill relations, I was gifted with what I'm donning as it's called, this scarf is called a kata, and the hat is called a topi, which I have on here displayed for you as part of your audio and visual. This topi, the hat, and the kata, the scarf, is steeped in symbolism of honor and gratitude within their culture, in which I'm most honored to share with you and our community. I cannot think of a more powerful way to extend this sacred honor from Nepal than to present this kata and this topi to your worship from the director of the Nepalese Culture and Tourism Board, Lala Bananya, representing honor and gratitude of service that, despite geographics and cultural differences, there are no borders to divide us, and that we truly are one in humanity and in the advancement of goodwill. And for that, I'm humbled to share this topi and kata to your worship and to our municipal government and to our community, wear with pride. And if I may at this time ask your worship to come down, and now I can put this on you. An honor of bestowment from the Nepalese Culture and Tourism Board of Nepal, right from Nepal, and that, you look a lot better than I do. All right.
Our Goodwill Ambassador, John Kennedy.
Thank you. An honor. It's warm.
Thank you very much, John. You're an inspiration, buddy, to the community, to families, to individuals. You truly are Mr. Goodwill Ambassador for our community. Thank you very much for everything that you do. Really means a lot to us. Thank you. So I just get a resolution that received the gift from the minister and the greetings from John. Moved by Councillor Miller, second by Councillor Graham. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Moving on your agenda, item number 7, 7.1. We have one piece of correspondence there. Oh, I apologize. Councillor Graham?
Your Worship, I apologize to the council. I'll take contact with a different matter. My mother lives in that road.
Okay, thank you.
I missed it the first time.
That's fine. No, just make that note and send it off to the clerk. Thank you so much. So the correspondence before us to receive, that the correspondence received from the area residents regarding proposed traffic bylaw amendment, bylaw number 2018-129 Holman Road, be received and referred to the second reading of the bylaws. Moved by Councillor Carr, second by Councillor Deniers. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Councillor Panchak.
Thank you very much. I have the privilege to present a petition signed by 359 individuals regarding the Santa Claus Parade. This was collected at downtown Belleville places of business, and I'll have the resolution that the petition be received and referred to 8B12, please. Yeah. Thank you.
Moved by Councillor Deniers. I apologize. Councillor Panchak, a second on petition. Second by Councillor Boyce. All in favor? That's carried. So we'll make that 7.2 for your agendas. Thank you. Item number 8, Committee of the Whole. Motion to go into Committee of the Whole to hear and consider reports, passing recommendations, and resolutions with Councillor Deniers in the chair. Moved by Councillor Boyce, second by Councillor Miller. All in favour? That's carried. There you go.
Okay, welcome everybody to Committee of the Whole. The first item of business is 8A1. The agenda shall include, under separate reports, items that warrant individual attention from Council. So the first matter is the amendment to Traffic Bylaw number 12967, Schedule B, parking restrictions on street parking, Queen Street. The Deputy City Clerk's report number DCC-2018-15. The resolution reads that a bylaw to approve and authorize an amendment to bylaw number 12967, being a bylaw to regulate traffic within the corporate limits of the Corporation of the City of Belleville, Schedule B, parking restrictions on street parking on Queen Street as outlined in report number DCC 2018-15, be prepared for Council's consideration. Is there a mover for that resolution? Councillor Panchuk. Seconder for that resolution? Councillor Thompson. Discussion. Councillor Boyce.
Unfortunately, due to illness, I wasn't able to attend traffic. But reading the report, there wasn't a significant issue with on-street parking as stated by our staff, our senior project manager, and so I'm not going to support the request to eliminate parking on Queen Street.
Councillor Panchuk.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So this spring, we passed a significant housekeeping motion to tighten up the on-street parking in the vicinity of the Belleville General Hospital. We had a number of issues where residents were finding that it was unsafe in their neighborhoods. They couldn't get in and out of their driveways. When they were getting in and out, there were on-street parking. And we had a significant debate, and we passed a resolution to tighten it up. Unfortunately, Queen Street was missed in that area, and I spoke to this at the August meeting. And so, this is a good motion. We've had follow-up from residents since the changes to parking restrictions have come in, where they're now seeing people who used to park on other streets are now migrating to Queen Street because it's the last one that was left open. There's an excellent report in the package from Barry Simpson, who himself attended sites and saw this, I don't know what the right word is, manifestation of migration of people moving onto the street. And so the committee, which was the recommendation of council for the committee to consider it, the committee considered it, and we're recommending a first reading only, to allow for us to notify residents on Queen Street to hear back feedback. And that's all we're discussing today. This is for first reading only. After staff receive feedback, after it's referred to the next traffic committee when it's constituted, they'll be able to come back with recommendations whether or not to proceed with second and third reading. I think this is a very responsible action for us to take, and I recommend it wholeheartedly.
Thank you. Councillor Miller's next.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I don't think it'll come as a surprise that I have issues with these parking restrictions that we keep slapping on. And every time we put restrictions on another street, it pushes a problem somewhere else. And as noted in the original report, we received correspondence from a resident. And now we're talking about initiating restrictions on a 3-block section based on a complaint or a concern from one resident. My biggest issue, and I concur, obviously, Councillor Boyce pointing out, says right in the report, while it's not unreasonable to think some of the parked vehicles on Queen Street could be users of the hospital, there did not appear to be a significant issue. So I'm not sure why we're fixing something that's not broke. But the other part within the report also identifies that the majority of the vehicles were located around the park, Robin Jeffrey Park. And I know on Queen Street, the access point for accessible vehicles is there. That's where they come in. So now what we're going to be saying is that you can't park there for an hour in the morning or an hour in the afternoon. can't use Bridge Street. We're already regulating Bleecker. That's a concern for me from an accessibility perspective. But again, I read the report and I'm not seeing an issue. And I think that, again, we're trying to fix something that may, in this instance, may not necessarily be broke. So I'm not going to support the recommendation.
Okay, Councillor Thompson?
Thank you very much. The letter that we received from this lady was representing the residents on that street, or some of those residents on that particular street. And at the traffic committee, I seconded and it got carried. And I'm really authorizing, because it's the first reading, we have the opportunity for residents along that street to voice their concern after, and I'm only authorizing it because it's the first reading.
Okay, anyone else? Seeing no further discussion, call the vote. All in favor? All against? Motion fails. Moving on, 8A2. Oh, we'll get the mayor back. Okay, moving on to 8A2, the development charges at 135 Station Street, proposed 103 unit apartment building. Director, Engineering and Development Services Report number DEDS-2018-08. The resolution reads that City staff be directed to prepare an amendment to Development Charges Bylaw 2016-16 to expand the boundaries of the Central Business District as shown on Schedule D to include 135 Station Street. Is there a mover for that resolution? Councillor Panchuk, Councillor Thompson. Any discussion? Councillor Panchuk.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I first want to say thank you very much to Director Bove for the excellent report. I think he does a very good job in outlining the issues. I also want to say that I thought the letter of support of the application from RFA Consulting was also very well done, and it clearly explains the situation. You know, this is an issue of the wrong side of the street, and I think if we look at the official plan and that the city center boundary as it was done, it was designed to encourage development in these areas. And because affordable housing is in such shortage in Belleville, I think it's worth making this decision. And I just want to say that I think the conclusion is, in terms of the recommendation from Director Bove, you know, highlighting the fact that there's been very limited construction of rental accommodations in the city over the last many years. The proposed development is significant for the city given its location and the fact the owner is intending to make the units affordable. Given that the site is adjacent to the boundary of the CBD, and any reduction in the amount of development charges payable will have a positive effect on helping make the subject units affordable, staff are supportive of amending the bylaw to include the subject property within the CBD boundary. You know, there's not often situations where we can directly contribute to dealing with a situation where we have a crisis in our city, and this is one of them. And I think that the 50% reduction in development charges for this is a good step for us. It'll help to not just encourage this development, but it also will allow the owners to be able to ensure that this is an affordable housing development, and I encourage everyone to vote in favor of it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, I'm going to speak in favor of it. As you know, through the years I've been on council, I've always been favorable to affordable housing, and this gives us an opportunity. And we've been asked on a number of occasions to look at development charges, and this is so close to the downtown area, and we really haven't had any apartments built in the city for a number of years, and this is giving an opportunity to consider some affordable housing in this particular district. and it would be a shame if we ignored this opportunity. I've only got one question, and I don't know who to ask it to. They're talking about affordable housing. Are we have any indication of what they're proposing for rent for these particular units? And I don't know who to ask for that for.
We'll ask Director Bove if he has any information. He's the author of the report.
Through the chair to Councillor Thompson, I can't say what rates they're looking at. I know that the owner of the property has been working through CMHC and some of the programs that they have to move this project forward, and I understand has also been working with the folks at Hastings County who are responsible for implementing some of the federal housing programs that help assist folks in getting rental accommodation and help subsidize some of the rents that are paid to the landlords. So I don't have any rates though.
And I'm just making some inquiries. I know if they get that funding, there's some regulations attached to it that the rents can only be X number of dollars, which makes it affordable. And again, people living in these units can certainly apply to Hastings County for subsidized rent in those particular units. So I would just like to be able to, hopefully as we give the gracious to the development charges, that the government funding will come along and provide us with some more affordable housing in this city, which is certainly very badly needed, but it also goes along with other units being built in this community for affordable housing. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Carr?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and perhaps through you to Mr. Bove, he could refresh my memory. When this application came through planning, was it not presented to the Planning Advisory Committee as affordable housing at the front end?
Director Bove?
Through the chair to Councillor Carr, certainly there was an indication that that was the target that they were going for in terms of the units, and you know, as those of you who are on the planning committee will recall, there were some issues at that first planning meeting with the impact of the building on Albion Street and some of the adjacent property owners on Station Street. So I think the owners were keeping their cards or their options open at that time until they got those issues resolved. And I think certainly once they saw that they were able to resolve those issues, they brought their focus in a little bit more in trying to make the units work.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess my concern is that we're looking at moving a boundary you know, based on a development that's in close proximity to an already existing boundary. And I think if we were looking at the boundary in and of itself, it'd be one thing. When we're asking to deviate the boundaries just simply on a development. The important thing to point out is this was presented initially as affordable housing. So it's not like the financial incentive is required for that to happen. That in fact you know, was already occurring. So that's a good sign. So whether this reduction in development charges was going to occur or not, it sounds as though, based on the conversations at planning and certainly here today, this applicant is looking at affordable housing, and which is a good thing for our community. So I think it's important to point out too that we have an applicant who's proceeding on its own. It's not wasn't looking initially for the incentive, that they were willing to proceed with that affordable housing as is. So I guess I'm just a little concerned about moving a boundary for the sake of one particular development, because you know there always could be the potential for others, and then if we're not setting up a certain boundary, we could constantly be creeping out every time an application comes forward. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Miller.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Through you to Director Bove. How far from the boundary would this property be? It's hard to tell on the map, the designation of the Central Business District, and just trying to pick it out and pinpoint it, I could see, but those streets are very small, they're very close together, and I can't tell what that eastern boundary is.
Through the chair to Councillor Miller, the boundary is just a couple properties to the south and west of the boundary of this property, and I would point out the property itself is within the city center designation of the official plan. And I think there was some confusion on the applicant's part. I think they mistakenly thought that the reduction in development charges that they're looking for applied to all properties within the city center designation, and that's not the case. There's a different boundary, and I realize we're mixing a lot of acronyms here and names, but the central business district was identified in the development charge bylaw some probably 15 or 20 years ago, and that's a distinct separate boundary from the city center and the OP. But in this particular location, they are, within a couple hundred yards. They're very similar, and this, as was said previously, this particular development just happened to be on the wrong side of the line.
And while you're up, if I may, Madam Chair.
Yes.
There's a second development at the end of Great St. James Street that was also recently approved. That would fall within the CBD?
Through the chair to Councillor Miller, I believe it would fall within the current CBD boundary.
I struggled with this initially because this project was going ahead without the incentive. But at the same time, when you look at the map, when you look at the intention, and when you consider that we're talking about lands that weren't really considered for development at the time the Central Business District was established, I mean, we're looking at vacant land, no roads, requiring services to be extended in order to make it all happen. So I can see where it may not have been included. I mean, it seemed more marshland than anything else. So, as I said, I've struggled on both sides of it, but it is very close, exceptionally close. And I think with the intention of it and what the intention of the developer is, I could support the 50% reduction.
Anyone else? Call the vote. All in favor? Yep. Recorded vote.
Councillor McCaw?
Yes.
Councillor Miller?
Yes.
Councillor Panchuk?
Yes.
Councillor Thompson?
Yes.
Councillor Boyce?
Yes.
Councillor Carr?
Yes.
Councillor Deniers?
Yes.
Councillor Graham?
Yes.
Mayor Christopher?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, 8A3, proposed minutes of settlement, appeal of amendment to zoning bylaw number 3014 as amended, 970 Highway 37, City of Belleville, County of Hastings. Owner is 734317 Ontario Inc., Glenn Gerald, file number B77-1003, OMB LPAT file PL 170508. The Manager of Approvals Report number APS-2018-28, and the resolution reads that the minutes of settlement for 970 Highway 37 included as Appendix 1 to this report APS 2018-28 be approved, and that the Mayor and Clerk be authorized to sign the minutes of settlement with 734317 Ontario Inc. on behalf of the Corporation of the City of Belleville for submission to the Local Planning Appeal Tribunal in support of case number PL 170508. Is there a mover for that resolution? Councillor Thompson. Is there a seconder for that resolution? Councillor Miller. Any discussion? Okay, no discussion. Call the vote. All in favor? Can I see the hands, please? Carried. 8A4, request for proposals, RPD-ECD-2018-01, Downtown Commons Feasibility and Economic Impact Study. Thank you very much. So is there a seconder for that? Councillor Thompson and Councillor Boyce. Any discussion? Councillor Miller.
Thank you. I'm just trying to find the right page.
8824?
Yep, I've got it. Just on the funding aspect of it, the application submitted has been approved, so there are some funds coming back our way. So while we budgeted 50,000, we're showing a total budget of 82.5. What's it actually going to cost? Are we talking about 32.5 from the RTO, District 9, and 32,000 from the city, or are we still looking at the full $50,000 complement from the city?
Well, let's ask Director Fleur to clarify that.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you to Councillor Miller. Yes, the intent of this is to combine the two, as outlined, to make it 82,500. So we did ask initially 50,000 to match up, but they gave us 32.5. So the process is that we're going to produce a market research concept plan and feasibility. So this is the next step as Council's asked us to do and undertake to look at leveraging that investment we've made in our downtown and look at what we can do with our common areas. So the total budget is 82,500. So we're looking at using all of those monies.
Okay, anyone else? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Moving on to 8B, consent items. Council may adopt consent items by one motion, but prior to consideration of such motion, members may request that specific items be removed from consideration under such motion, and Council shall consider such items individually. I noted 8B13, Councillor Panchuk. You have a conflict? 8B1 and 2? Great. B1 and 2, the mayor indicated. Anybody else? That the following agenda items be approved with the exception of 8B1, 8B2, 8B13. Oh, okay. Well, I'm asking if there's anybody else. Councillor McCaw.
8B7, 8B9.
Councillor Boyce. Councillor Miller.
7, 9, and 12.
9 and 12 as well? 7, 9, and 12, okay. Councillor Graham? Councillor Carr?
8B7, please.
7. Councillor Thompson?
8B15.
Councillor Panchuk?
8, 9, and 12, please.
8, 9, and 12. Why don't we just do them all? Okay, that the following agenda items be approved with the exception of 8B1, 8B2, 8B7, 8B8, 8B9, 8B12, and 8B15. 13 as well, 8B13. Yeah, you've got 15. 12. Is that it? Okay. Can I have a motion for that, please? Councillor Carr, Councillor Thompson. All in favor? Carried. The mayor has a conflict on 8B1. Proposed amendment to zoning bylaw number 10245 as amended, 55 Church Street South, City of Belleville, County of Hastings, file number B771058. Owner is Para Mathis Joseph, agent is Chris Nava. Policy Planners Report number PP-2018-36. The resolution reads that the Belleville Planning Advisory Committee recommends the following to the City of Belleville, that the application to amend zoning bylaw number 10245 is amended for land described as 55 Church Street South, City of Belleville, County of Hastings, be denied. Can I have a mover for that? Councillor Miller, Councillor Panchuk. Discussion. Discussion? All in favor? Carried. 8B2, the mayor also has a conflict. Proposed amendment to zoning bylaw number 10245 is amended. 59 Church Street South, City of Belleville, County of Hastings, file number B77-1059. The owner is Panagiotis Karaglas. Agent is Chris Nava. Policy Planners Report number PP-2018-37. The resolution reads that the Belleville Planning Advisory Committee recommends the following to City Council, that the application to amend zoning bylaw number 10245 is amended for land described as 59 Church Street South, City of Belleville, County of Hastings, be denied. Councillor Panchuk, Councillor Carr, any discussion? All in favor? Carried. Seven. Conflict on AB7. Or, yeah. Okay. Okay, moving on to 8B7. Property Standards Building Demolitions, Chief Building Official Report number CBO-2018-05. The resolution reads that the Chief Building Officials Report CBO 2018-05 Property Standards Building Demolition be received. Can I have a mover for that? Councillor Carr, Councillor Miller. Any discussion? Councillor Miller.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Perhaps if Mr. Marichek's here, I was just wondering when these orders for demolition had gone out and what timeline the owners have been given to see it through. I'm delighted to see this, and it's too bad there's others that haven't made the list yet.
So we're going to ask Director Beauvais to stand in. Thank you.
Yes, sorry, Mr. Marichek was unable to be here today, so I'll try and answer the questions through the chair to Councillor Miller. Some of these date back to 2017. We've been working with the owner to try and get repairs undertaken on the properties or demolition to be completed. The most recent one is 83 Bridge Street, and the order was issued earlier this year, and they had until the 17th of September to comply, and they have not done that. The others are significantly prior to that.
How soon before the work is carried out?
I believe Mr. Marichek is in the process of putting out a call for quotations to get the work undertaken as we speak. So.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Councillor McCaw.
Thank you, through you. Just a few questions, just because I don't quite understand the process. Are these properties, obviously the owners have been contacted. Are these properties, are they tax arrears or anything like that?
Through the chair to Councillor McCaw, certainly the owners, we've had contact with all the owners. Orders have been issued. In many cases, they're orders to repair the dwelling. And in some cases, as that work or lack of work drags on, the building falls in a worse and worse state of repair to the point where the owner doesn't want to make the repairs because it's at a state where it doesn't make any sense. The building really needs to come down. I do believe a couple of these properties, if they're not at the point of tax sale, would be very close to that.
Just further to that, I mean, I guess I'm kind of not understanding the thinking behind some of these homeowners, why they just wouldn't sell the property. You know, sell it as is. I'm sure there's lots of developers that would take them down and use them properly. I don't know if that's something that, a conversation that occurs or not between, you know, the city and the homeowners.
Through the chair to Councillor McCaw, if we knew the answer to that question, we'd make our jobs a whole lot easier. It's difficult to explain why, number one, the property gets to the state it does, and two, why they just allow the city to go ahead and go to the expense of demolition where they lose control of the process, I don't have an answer for you.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Seeing none, we'll call the vote. All in favor? Carried. Next item I have is 8B8. The execution of subdivision agreement, final approval of plan of subdivision, Heritage Park subdivision,
I'll
Phase 6.
move as read, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Boyce. Any discussion?
Yeah.
Okay, Councillor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And this, just for people who are following along, this deals with an execution of a subdivision agreement for final approval of the Heritage Park subdivision in Thurlow Ward. And the reason why I wanted to ask about this is that I'm throughout the course of the last couple of months, I've been hearing from a lot of homeowners in that area regarding water pressure and the fact that it is significantly a problem for them. And so I just wanted to ask Director Bove if I could. I know that we're doing some work on mineral in the area, and I'll just be careful in how I word that. But can Director Bove tell me whether or not the water pressure issues have been considered in this recommendation, and will it not make the situation worse?
Director Bove?
Through the Chair to Councillor Panchuk, certainly we are aware of water pressure issues a little further west in the Settlers Ridge area, and work is underway this week, I believe, to extend water main up Sydney Street, which will definitely have an impact and improvement for the residents. To be honest, this is the first I've heard of a water pressure issue in Heritage Park, so I wasn't aware that there had been any, although the colleagues in water tend to hear those things before we do. This is a relatively minor final phase of the subdivision. I would expect that the number of homes going in probably not going to have much of an impact on water in terms of it going down. Ultimately, though, I think as we move forward following the Mineral Maitland Road project, and we look at Farnham Road and extending a water line up Farnham Road, which is part of the proposal, that will have a very positive effect on pressure, both for any issues on the Heritage Park side, the west side of Farnham, as well as on the Cannock Mills side on the east side. So, I mean, that would probably assist there. There is still work that ultimately will need to be done at the Cannock Booster Station as an interim step before it's necessary for the city to look at a water tower or reservoir further north to serve the lands north of the 401.
Follow up with one quick question. A lot of concern about the shape of the road there. I explained to residents, I just want to confirm that I'm correct, that will be resurfaced and it'll be a more appropriate roadway in the future after this project's done.
I presume you're talking about Farnham Road. So that, if Council will recall, as part of the Mineral Maitland project, we had to go through an environmental assessment process, and we included Farnham in that process. So the environmental assessment is done, but Council at this point has not approved any reconstruction dollars for Farnham. So I expect that will be an issue that the new Council will have to look at in terms of construction dollars for Farnham Road.
Okay. Anyone else? Seeing no further discussion, all in favor? Carried. Next issue I have is 8B9. The use of animal traps. General Manager, Transportation Operations Services, Report Number GMTOS-2018-06, and the resolution reads that pursuant to the General Manager of Transportation Operations Services Report Number GMTOS-2018-06, regarding the use of animal traps, management be directed to create a policy and corresponding procedures on the trapping of nuisance beavers and other fur-bearing animals. Moved by Councillor Miller, seconded by Councillor McCaw. Any discussion? Councillor McCaw.
Thank you, through you. Just further to the presentation we had this evening, and our own situation here in Belleville, I think that we can have the opportunity for Belleville to be a shining example to other municipalities about how we can manage this problem effectively. I don't believe this city can kill its way out of this problem. We heard from our deputation that there are options for live traps. I would certainly consider the actual motion that's about the policy that's being presented here, but I could only support that provided that it was as a last resort and that the traps are live traps. No body gripping devices, no leg hold traps. It's simply inhumane. I mean, luckily, it was a miserable failure of the beaver situation down in the Stanley Park subdivision, thankfully. But, research shows us that it can take up to 15 minutes for a beaver to drown, which is simply sadistic. I think that we can do this, and we can do this right, and I think we can do this humanely. And I would be willing to support it only under those conditions that it's live traps used as a very last resort.
Okay. Anybody else? Councillor Panchuk?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree to a point with Councillor McCaw. I think fundamentally this is an issue of humane treatment of animals. It's not a issue of efficiency or of the least cost or those things. It's about treating life with some respect. Now, I understand that beavers also are a menace and they cause damage to property. We saw pictures in the presentation. They are a problem, and all municipalities need to deal with it, and we have to. And I would be, and I understand that part of it in the same way that we have to deal with animals in order to feed ourselves and et cetera, et cetera. The issue to me is about how we treat them and doing that humanely. I understand that in some cases they may have to be destroyed because we can't transfer disease, or we can't move them in a certain area or whatnot, and we have to destroy them. But I think it's a different way to deal with that than it is to use a leg trap. And so I agree with the part about the fact that our policy going forward should be for the elimination of leg hold traps. I'm not sure if the live trap is the only solution that we have, but certainly I want staff to look at that. I'm disappointed at the last council meeting we didn't at least take some steps with respect to Ward 1, which was the amended motion that Councillor McCaw brought forward, that we would be able to start it and start dealing with it and move forward. I understand, and I'm skeptical when groups come forward and suggest that that there's nothing wrong with the way they're dealing with it, particularly when they are supported and funded by the industry themselves, who make their living in trapping. And there are a lot of things that today we would look back and say they're completely unacceptable, but not so long ago in our past, it was acceptable, and the groups that were propagating and that were benefiting it were the ones that were saying, well, we shouldn't change it. It's about our history. It's about our way of life and whatnot. So I think this is, perhaps not as important as some other issues, but I think it does speak a lot about us as a city and whether or not we believe in humanely treating all animals. And I think in this case, I'm not going to vote in favor of this resolution because it doesn't have the implicit situation of requiring the policy to come back without leg hold traps. If that was to be amended, I would support it, but the way it is now, I won't be voting in favor of it.
Okay. Anybody else? Councillor Boyce.
I'll concur with the last two speakers. I mean, we only have to look at municipalities like Mono and Guelph to see that they are going forward with the idea that live traps are the only option and as a last resort. I know we've been so far quite successful right now with our beaver baffle, and so I'm hoping that this resolution is defeated. I know it'll have to come back to council for final approval, but if it is defeated, I'll certainly be supporting the as a last resort live trap only in both wards. And I also understand that there are certain acts, there's a Farmers Act that supersedes any bylaws that we may put in place. But certainly the issue of live traps is something that I'm going to support for both wards.
Okay, anyone else? Councillor Thompson?
Yeah, so if we send this to staff, staff is going to bring a report back when?
Perhaps we could ask Mr. Reid when a report would be available?
Through the chair to Councillor Thompson, it probably would be a couple weeks, 3 weeks. We're getting into a very busy time of year, trying to wrap up before winter to develop a plan. Ideally, we'd probably be, no sense reinventing the wheel. The Road Supervisor Association is a good network tool to have other policies that are out there. So we'd probably research, talk to other municipalities. The town of Mono does have a very good template that could be used, so it wouldn't take a lot of extra work to do it, but it would just take time to look at that option as well as the City of London's, and not to mention there's probably other municipalities that have it that aren't posted online. So it would be probably 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah, further to that,
Thompson?
So in your report coming back to us, it could have that possibility in there that we would be eliminating the leg traps or the live traps that they're talking about today.
To be clear, on the town of Mono, I don't believe that actually spoke to banning or not using. It just spoke to when animals are found in traps alive, they will be humanely euthanized. They did not speak of banning specific traps within it. I know talking to our CBO, he was concerned on the taking away. I mean, at the end of the day, and I hate to say it, it is a tool in their toolbox as a last resort, some of these traps, coyotes and so forth, not just beavers aren't. I know we've talked about beavers a lot this is where it all stems from, but the reality is there's coyotes, there's other foxes that do get into our urban areas, and they are very hard to trap, live trap. I mean, that's just the reality of it. The food sources that are out there are, garbage and so forth is out there, garbage cans and stuff, and next thing you know, if we do totally ban it as total ban, the reality is that, we're going to get calls about our dogs getting, our dogs and cats going missing and stuff like that. So I think, the idea of having a policy and procedure with kind of various levels, starting with, the beaver baffle or other type of measures, live traps, and using the other traps as a very last resort will be probably coming forward in the policy and procedure moving forward, but looking at other options first.
Anyone else? Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate what staff has done in terms of the research already and anticipating that there will be a draft policy. Couple of things, that just hearing a conversation today. Number one, this is in a stormwater management area as well, and so we have to keep in mind that we should be making sure that we're protecting the public from entering a culvert or things of that nature. We do have signs in certain areas, and I know there was reference to the fact that children play in the creek and everything else, but how many times have we heard from many organizations that, children should be staying away from the creeks and the shorelines, and certainly staying away from fast-moving water as it relates to stormwater management. So that responsibility falls on all of us, including, the parents of the children out there. The other side of it too is, and it's unfortunate that the photos weren't available for the public to see, the infrastructure damage that can occur from one beaver is phenomenal. And I know there's a lot of talk about, restricting or prohibiting leg hold traps, but the reality is this, and Mr. Reid referred to it as a tool in the toolbox, and I would tend to agree with that, simply because what happens if these other measures don't work? So do we just cross our fingers and hope that that road doesn't wash out, that those basements don't flood? And then we have a responsibility as a municipality to look at that from a public safety point of view. So it's a very fine balancing act. I don't think you're going to find anybody in here that says, you know what, let's just set up live traps all over the city, leg hold traps, and do a inhumane job here. But the reality is that there are times And Mr. Reid also referred to the fact that there are other predators out there that cause a real issue. And so by outright banning them, I think we're going to put ourselves in a predicament where down the road we're going to run into significant multi-million-dollar infrastructure damage over wildlife. In particular, as we continue to grow out this city, and I mentioned this 2 weeks ago, as the subdivisions continue to grow in the north, we are displacing some wildlife. There's no doubt about it. And the reality is that wildlife is going to try to compete with that urbanization. And there are going to be times when there are no other alternatives, and we have to protect that infrastructure that's out there, that's private investment, as well as what we have to do as a city to make sure that our citizens and their assets are safe. So I would just caution council, you know, I know that it can get emotional in terms of seeing what can be done. Look, let's face it. If we want to do a lot of research, we can look into how is our food produced and how is the process done and how is cattle slaughtered and how are chickens slaughtered. You know, and you can all imagine and see that we've seen on CBC and different news outlets talk about how, you know, there's an inhumane and humane way of processing food. And so, you know, I'm just saying is that we can take one example of a bad situation, and no doubt about it that it was, but we have to be cautious to make sure that we're not handcuffing ourselves down the road, and it's going to cost us millions of dollars in terms of trying to protect our assets. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, go ahead.
And throughout the whole process, I've been talking to the fur bearers. I get confused with all the different acronyms and stuff like that, but they're from the West Coast, and they're actually a foundation or association that helps awareness with you know, with animals that bear fur and so forth. So they have actually offered to come to Belleville and actually host a seminar for local municipalities on how to deal with animals, beavers specifically, on how to best practice as a first resort. So they're going to come here in the spring, host a local little seminar free of charge, and we're going to reach out to some of our other road supers and stuff like that and see whether there's others who'd like to come. So I think at the end of the day, you know, the silver lining is it's a good opportunity to look at our different processes, and you know, time changes and so forth. But I think at the end of the day, ending the ban totally or putting a ban on totally is not the best option at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. So no further discussion. We'll call the vote.
Recorded vote, please.
Okay. Recorded vote, Mr. Clerk.
Councillor Miller?
Yes.
Councillor Panchuk?
No.
Councillor Thompson?
Yes.
Councillor Boyce?
No.
Councillor Carr?
Yes.
Councillor Deniers?
Yes.
Councillor Graham?
Yes.
Councillor McCaw?
No.
Mayor Christopher?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, moving on to 8B12. 8B12 is the Belleville Nighttime Santa Claus Parade request for assistance and permit application. Request for assistance with the 20th Annual Belleville Nighttime Santa Claus Parade from Belleville Chamber of Commerce and parade permit application. Resolution reads that the Belleville Chamber of Commerce application for the issuance of a parade permit to have a parade on November the 18th, 2018, assembling between noon and 4:30 at the Belleville Fairgrounds be approved in consultation with staff, and that the assistance required and special considerations requested, including waiver of fees as outlined by the Chamber of Commerce in their request for assistance with the 20th Annual Belleville Nighttime Santa Claus Parade on November the 18th, 2018, be approved and referred to staff for consultation. Can I have a mover for that resolution, please? Councillor Boyd.
No, Madam Chair, with the understanding that it occurs on Front Street.
So you want an amending motion?
Yep. It mentions where it starts, and that it'll end at Quinte Secondary School and
So
and
that's
follow
a completely different motion?
No, it's just further clarification to the motion. It's not a different motion.
Okay. So you want it to read, assembling between noon and 4:30 at the Belleville Fairgrounds?
Proceed through Front Street and end up at Quinte Secondary School.
Okay, so that's moved by Councillor Boyce. Is there a seconder for that resolution? Councillor Thompson? Any discussion? Councillor Miller?
Actually, Councillor Panchuk presented a petition. I'd be curious to know of what the feeling was of that petition.
Okay.
Thank you. Just the petition read, keep Santa Claus downtown. I, the undersigned, do not want the Belleville Santa Claus parade rerouted to Bridge Street. And as I said, there were 359 signatories on that.
Okay.
Have a look.
Can
we have a look at the petition?
Oh, okay.
Or the clerk, please.
So,
Councillor Miller.
So, Madam Chair, I'll support the motion. The irony that I kept thinking about was during the last number of years of construction of downtown, we've managed to keep that parade going through the downtown. And now that it's going to be finished by the time the parade takes place, and we're being asked to move it. And I know the Chamber's been here before. I know it's tough, and it's growing, which is a great thing. And I get it that there's probably no perfect solution. But then I also am curious as to how much input there has been from residents on Bridge East and the many side streets that cross, because they'll be impacted through parking. People will not be able to access or leave their homes if they have to by vehicle for an hour or whatever it takes for that parade to pass, so they're going to be locked in that respect. We're talking about taking a parade through an entirely residential area with the exception of 2 blocks in the downtown. I think the best parade I saw was and was part of going through the downtown and all those Christmas trees that every merchant had put out in front of their businesses. They were all decorated. It was so bright. And I know many on council will remember some of those excursions through downtown before the development when there were banks of streetlights out. We'd be in darkness while going through downtown. Well, now it's bright, it's beautiful, and we want to show it off, and whether or not all the businesses take advantage of it, maybe that's up to them. But we want to show it off, and I think having people see what's happened downtown, because I'm pretty sure there are many in our community that haven't, I think this is a great opportunity. And if it's going to be discussed again, because Quinte Secondary may not be available in the future, and as Ms. Raycroft had pointed out, that basically it's 1 year and then have time to take a really good look at how this thing has to go. I want to see it go downtown this year, and I'll support Councillor Boyce's motion.
Okay. Anybody else? Councillor Thompson?
Yeah, and I'm going to support moving it downtown. All I would ask is that the DBIA work with the merchants that are downtown and try to encourage them, if we're keeping it downtown, try and have those merchants stay open until 6 o'clock that night instead of closing at 4 o'clock. I think that's important that we get as many of them open. They want it downtown. I think it's a benefit, and I would ask the DBA to work with the merchants, try to encourage them to stay open.
Okay, Councillor Panchuk?
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, certainly I appreciate the position the Chamber of Commerce has been placed in. You know, they were notified that the Quinte Secondary School parking lot would not be available. Being the professional and competent organization, they've taken a lot of work to try to figure out an alternative route that the parade can go through. And they've done a very good job of working collaboratively. They've worked with other agencies to try to deal with it. They solicited feedback, and you know, if Quinte Secondary School was not available, then they, I think, proposed a very, you know, an option. But in the last week, that option is back on the table again now. It is is available. And so, the issues of safety, well, those issues have been there for the last number of years when Quinte Secondary was a site. The issue of flatbed trucks negotiating turns and using that area, well, we had flatbed trucks last year in the parade and they were able to do it. I know that, there are disembarkation issues, but the Chamber is very good at adapting and dealing with those issues. And I'm not trying to downplay the effort they have to go to, and I'm not trying to say it's who cares because it's just them. I understand, but I also understand that they're up to the challenge. And after the investment that we made in downtown, it's important that we continue to showcase it. There also are concerns from Bridge Street East residents, and I have been contacted by some who were concerned about just how off-street parking was going to be off of Bridge Street. They already dealing at some points of the day with people from the hospital parking on their streets. Now they're going to have the parade, and even though it's temporary, it's still going to be an inconvenience. And then, of course, we had the email that we all received from the church regarding their event. Another event that's supported by the city, the Belleville Community Arts and Culture Fund, has funded that event, and they're concerned about dealing with it. So, I'm prepared to support this motion, but I also think it's important that going forward, it's up to the downtown merchants and the BDIA to show that the parade should belong in downtown Belleville. There are many other parts of the city which would like to have the parade. They contact the Chamber regularly saying they'd like to see it on North Front Street or on Bell Boulevard or on Dundas Street East or Dundas Street West. There are others that would like to do it, and the Chamber takes on this contract for us to provide the service. But if the merchants downtown aren't going to step up and support the parade financially to assist with what other challenges the Chamber has, if they're not going to have, if many of them are not going to be open, then the question, I think, is legitimate, and one is, why should it be downtown? And so my recommendation would be to the Chamber of Commerce that if this motion passes today, that their first call should be to the BDIA, and they should be saying, this is the threshold we want to see for open retailers on parade night. Pick the number, 75%, 80%, whatever that number is, this is what we want to see. And that there'll be some type of a financial contribution by the Downtown Association to, at the very least, be able to hire someone to do a survey to find out who is really open and who is not. That is the very least that I would suggest going forward. But the feedback has been loud and clear. And again, I don't want the Chamber of Commerce to believe that I don't believe that their pain and aggravation is not worthy of consideration. I do. I also understand that they're very capable of running this event, and that if it is going to stay in the downtown in the future, this is the route that I suggest that we deal with. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And since this changes from the resolution that's was originally on the floor, I was wondering if I could get the consent of council to have Ms. Raycroft back to the podium. I have a question regarding Quinte Secondary School property and just the maintenance issue.
Okay. With the consent of council? Okay.
So you're hearing the debate around the table, and the one question that I have is in relation to who would be responsible for maintaining the property. Not that any of us are wishing for winter in November, but it could happen. And so would it then be the Chamber's responsibility to make sure that there's any snow clearing or anything like that? Is the board still maintaining that property? Do we have any indication? I know you said early in your presentation that the board has now opened that property. I suspect they're not doing a lot in terms of maintenance. Are you able to take care of that, I guess, is the simple answer.
Well, effectively, when they said that we weren't going to be able to use the property, if we tried to, we would have been trespassing. So there were questions in the beginning that, oh, well, the city can have the insurance, the Chamber holds the insurance, so why is it an issue? Problem is, if we don't have access to the property, then we can't be insured. So that kind of took that off the table. Now that they've said we can use it, they've said, and that they have intimated that they will cover the costs, but we're not quite sure what that means. So if we do get a nasty snowstorm the weekend before or the Saturday of the weekend, I presume they're going to have to come on board to do that. But that's, again, now we're putting to a position of trying to plan the parade around another partner that wasn't at the table when they should have been.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and I just got a couple comments on that, and just to, thank you, Ms. Ricker. You know, I got to hand it again, and I'm going to repeat a lot what Councillor Panchuk said. The Chamber's doing great trying to solve an issue, strike a proper balance. I'm going to express some disappointment with the BDIA in the simple sense is that this is an opportunity for them to partner with the Chamber in order to showcase the downtown. I've heard that mentioned by a couple of members of council here today, showcasing the downtown. Well, the whole point of showcasing that downtown is we want it to be a people place. But there has to be businesses open and businesses participating for people to come. And so I don't know whether we want to put the Chamber in that position to say this is what we want as a threshold, as Councillor Panchuk alluded to, or if council says these are our expectations as a council in terms of what we want to see in terms of participation rates and things along that line, because I tend to agree if you know, we're putting that parade down Front Street, which I think is a great idea, and maybe some floats are going to have to reduce in size, and if that's the issue, they've got less than they got just a little bit beyond 30 days in order to make those necessary changes, and if that's a consequence of that, then so be it. But the reality is that if we have businesses that are closed, that are not participating, that are not welcoming, and or if the event is small, then it just reinforces there's nothing to do downtown. And so here's an opportunity where we're providing a parade and an opportunity for people to gather downtown. And I would hope that on a go-forward basis that not only the Chamber here is at the podium in terms of taking the lead on this, what we expect, but that the BDIA is standing shoulder to shoulder with them in terms of reinforcing why it should be downtown. Now, I did receive a couple of responses from businesses who said, you know, it should go downtown, or, you know, this would be an epic failure. Well, those businesses better be open or it's going to be an epic failure in my mind. It's we're constantly, everybody's looking at the city to solve all the problem, and we've got 35 million reasons already invested into it. It's now time for the business owners to step up and to participate, and what better time to do it than when you're going to have thousands of people downtown. So I think at some point we need to really have a strong look at what are the thresholds, and we set what we expect, and then that way we're not putting the Chamber in that difficult position.
Okay, anybody else? Our director. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's good. That's fine, Madam
Mayor
Chair.
Christopher?
So just to get some clarity, it's a good detailed report on behalf of the Chamber. So thank you through Jill to Susan and all of the staff. So just to Madam Chair, any of the paperwork has to change now because okay, you're thinking what I'm thinking. Okay, because all this paperwork has got us leaving Bridge West going to Bridge East. So I just want to make sure through you that this all needs to change now.
Yes.
Okay.
And I think Director McDonald's going to speak to that when everybody else is finished.
That's good. Yep.
Director McDonald?
Through the chair to council and to set our partners at the Chamber's mind at ease. There was some discussion between the folks at the Chamber and the clerk's office in anticipation that there was some discussion and debate to be had tonight about the route. My proposal to council is that as we're now the administrator of the parade permit, as council is aware, is that we in corporate services would work with the Chamber folks who will now frantically be working to accommodate council's wish depending on the outcome of the vote, to amend the paperwork and recirculate it very quickly rather than making them resubmit an application, which is some considerable work, which would be on top of what they're going to be doing. We've had discussion with the partners, emergency services, both police and fire, transportation operations, and the rest of the folks involved. So what I would request and advise council is the most probably efficient path forward would be for us to internally at the staff level is just to work with the application that they've got and amend the route and the paperwork and shuffle it administratively through the system again rather than start from scratch. I think I think the folks at the Chamber would appreciate that. I know at least one staff member would.
I think she's in the audience.
I know she is, yeah.
Okay, that's it?
Yeah, so as long as there's no real big concerns by council, that would be my recommendation to you folks.
Okay, everybody looks like they're nodding positively. So we'll call the vote on 8B12. All in favor with the amended route? Carried. 8B13, Councillor Panchuk, I think you said you had a conflict. 8B13, Municipal Bylaw Enforcement Officers, request from the Quinte Mall. Resolution that a bylaw to appoint municipal bylaw enforcement officers for property known as the Quinte Mall, North Front Street and Bell Boulevard, be prepared for council's consideration. Can I have a motion for that, please? Councillor Thompson, Councillor Carr. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. We'll get Councillor Panchuk back. You just pulled it. Thompson. So, 8B15, RCCS-2018-04, construction of a washroom pavilion at Swix Island Park. The property supervisor's report number PS-2018-08. The resolution reads that the tender submission from Standard Paving Limited be accepted for contract number RCCS-2018-04. The construction of a washroom pavilion at Swix Island Park in the amount of $372,700 plus $48,451 HST for a total amount of $421,151 with a completion date of December 31st, 2018, this being the lowest tender submission received, and that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to sign the acceptance agreement on behalf of the corporation of the city of Belleville, and that the city clerk be authorized to affix the corporate seal. Mover for that resolution, Councillor Thompson. I need a seconder. Seconder for the washroom, Councillor Miller. Any discussion? Councillor Thompson.
Just one question. I commend the staff for bringing this back to us, and within the budget that we can move ahead and have these ready for next summer, for the main attractions that really start June and July. If we didn't approve this today, and we went back and wanted bigger facilities, what's the drawback of that? When would the bigger ones be able to be built if we went back to the drawing boards?
So we'll look to Director Fleur.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you to Councillor Thompson. I would be suggesting that we not be able to build a bigger one, but perhaps another one. And I say that because of limitations that I've identified in the last council meeting in terms of our situation as it stands, and the design that we have to undertake to build a holding tank facility that meets within a certain criteria as outlined under the Ontario Building Code. But if we were to redo this, or if we were to delay it or retender it in any fashion, form or another, or look for another facility, we'd be probably creeping into 2020 at this point.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else? Your Worship.
Thank you. Okay, so the resolution is good and it's tight, and it defines a completion date of the 31st of December 2018, so that's what, close to 60 some odd days, right? October, November, December. So has staff got provisions in there for penalties if it's not 100% complete on the 31st of December 2018? Madam Chair?
Okay, I think Rob McGlashan is in the audience, if you'd like him to come forward.
Yep, love to.
Okay. With the consent of council? Oh, Brian. Well, maybe Brian's going to... I just see that it's his report. Who wants to do it? Okay, Director of Treasury.
To the Chair of the Council, yes, there is liquidated damages in every of our tenders and request for proposals.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Call the vote. All in favor? Carried. Moving on to 8C, council information matters. Council may adopt council consent items by one motion, but prior to consideration of such motion, members may request that specific items be removed from consideration under such motion, and council shall consider such items individually. Councillor McCaw? No, thank you. Councillor Boyce? No. Councillor Miller?
No, thank you.
Your worship?
I'm good.
Councillor Graham? No, thank you. Councillor Carr?
No, thank you.
Councillor Thompson?
No, thank you.
Councillor Panchuk? He's not here. Okay, so that the following agenda items be received. Stop. Okay. I need a motion for that. Councillor Carr, Councillor Boyce, all in favor? Carried. I think that's the first time in a long time that's happened. Rise and report. Councillor Carr, Councillor Boyce, all in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Okay, moving right along with some adjustments.
So that was the one.
167.
67 is gone.
So it's not even on there now? Because I declared a conflict. So that's toast.
It's gone. I think that's the only one.
Okay. Okay, we're going to go through the first, second, third reading of the bylaws. If I can ask the chair, Councillor Deniers, I've taken a conflict on the first reading of 2018-165. It's a bylaw to approve water agreement between Daniel and Peggy. So I've taken a conflict on that. You're more than welcome to read that through.
I'll do it right from here.
Yep, go right ahead.
Okay. So bylaw 2018-165, bylaw to approve and authorize a water agreement between Daniel Dale and Peggy Peak and the Corporation of the City of Belleville. Can I have a mover for that? Councillor Carr, Councillor Thompson. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. Oh, I'll do the second and third? Yeah. So, second reading of the bylaw 2018-165, moved by Councillor Miller, Councillor Carr. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. And the third reading of bylaw 2018-165, a bylaw to approve and authorize a water agreement between Daniel Dale and Peggy Peak and the Corporation of the City of Belleville. Mover, Councillor Carr, Councillor Thompson. All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Okay, so we're back to the first reading of the bylaws, and if it's consent of council, I'll read the numbers. So 2018-158, 2018-159, 2018-160, 161, 162, 163, 164, 166, 168, 169, 170. First reading of the bylaws moved by Councillor Denier, second by Councillor Boyce. All in favor? That's carried. Second reading of the bylaws and discussion if needed. 2018-128, 2018-129, 2018-130, 158, 159, 160, 161, 162, 163, 164, 166, 168, 169, and 170. Second reading of the bylaws moved by Councillor Miller, second by Councillor Graham. Any questions, discussion? All in favor? All opposed? That's carried. Third reading of the bylaws. And if it's again consent of council, I'll just read the numbers. We can go home and watch the World Series. 2018-128, 129, 130, 158, 159, 160, 161, 162, 163, 164, 166, 168, 169, and 170. Third reading of the bylaws. Moved by Councillor Carr, second by Councillor Deniers. All in favor? All opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Any new business? Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. No new business. Any motions? No new motions. Notice of motions? No notice of motions. Announcements. I'll go around the queue. Just want to let you know this is the last meeting before the municipal elections. Any announcements? Seeing no announcements at all. Oh, okay. I have a couple here. So, I have two proclamations. Actually, I have three. I read a proclamation today, Seniors Week, October 1, 2018, at the CARP meeting and conference and convention at Quinte Sports and Wellness Center. So it's strong, and it was a very full and vibrant room. And I want to thank Director Fleur and his staff for allowing the CARP organization to host their gatherings there. So I would like to proclaim the month of November as Pulmonary Hypertension Awareness Month. Please help me spread the word of awareness for this great cause. I would also like to proclaim November 5 to the 11th as Veterans Week in the city of Belleville. I hope you will help me in paying tribute to all the vets who have served and who continue to serve this great country with pride. And some events and activities I had the pleasure of attending and representing council and your families and all the constituents in this great city. I attended the first annual Belleville Senators Golf Classic in Belleville, and they raised approximately $25,000 for 3 Oaks, so it's a great event. So congratulations to our partners, the Belleville Senators, and that's just an ongoing outreach programs that they have for our community. Attended the Tipper Financial 40th anniversary. The family and the business had a full-day venue and invited their families and guests, and they actually had a film showing at the Empire Theatre, so congratulations to Rolly Tipper and the boys and his lovely wife and the entire family. 20th anniversary of St. Teresa's. Unbelievable, eh? St. Teresa's is 20 years old. Great story there. Councillor Brian Smith, 20 years ago, brought greetings on behalf of the city, and he was in attendance, and his lovely daughter now is the principal there, so it's a great family story. And her daughter also was working customer service and reception, so it's a great story on behalf of the Smith family. Had the pleasure of participating in Walk a Mile in her shoes. I got to admit, it was the most comfortable shoes I wore this time. So it was nice, and congratulations to the fellow council that came. We also had MP Ellis there, and we had a parliamentary assistant from Ottawa that participated, so it was a good news story. And a very nice event that I had the pleasure of participating in with Chief Mark McDonald and Chief Gignac and EMS, Doug Soka, and the City of Belleville. We signed the first Memorandum of Understanding in North America with Wounded Warriors as a municipality, bringing awareness in communication, education for mental illness on our frontline officers and also in the military. So I was tremendously proud, and thank you to the Chief of representing our fire services there. That's all I have on this 9th day of October, 2018. No, I don't. I have... Oh, yes, I just remembered. We also have to go back into camera. We have some unfinished business. So do I need a motion to the clerk to go back? No, we don't. So we're going back into camera, and then we'll be back out here. 2. It's 3. I need one more.
Grab 3 of them.
I need 2 more.
That's my bedtime.
Okay, so item number 14 on your agendas. Thank you, everyone, for waiting for us. We apologize about that. Item number 14, confirmatory bylaw, that a bylaw number 2018-171, a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at the meeting held today, the 9th of October 2018, be read first, second, and third time. Moved by Councillor Boyce, second by Councillor Deniers. All in favor? That's carried. I need a motion to adjourn. Councillor Deniers, second by Councillor Carr. All in favor? That's carried. It's been a nice 4 years.